On the night of February 28, 2026, as the city of Tehran sprawled beneath a blanket of darkness, millions of its residents drifted into sleep, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break above them. The city's lights twinkled quietly, a fragile sense of normalcy hanging in the air, while the world outside their windows was already shifting. Far to the west, Israeli fighter jets streaked eastward, their engines whispering through the desert darkness. These were not ordinary flights. Each jet was a spearhead, slicing through the night sky with a singular, deadly purpose. This was no routine patrol. This was a meticulously planned high-stakes mission, years in the making, aimed at the very core of Iran's leadership. Every detail had been rehearsed, every contingency considered, as the pilots pressed forward into hostile airspace. The jets flew low, hugging the contours of the Earth, evading radar detection with the help of advanced stealth technology. Guided by precision, nerves of steel, and the silent prayers of those who sent them, they pressed on, invisible phantoms in the night. Their target: a fortified compound in northern Tehran, the nerve center of the regime. Behind its walls, key figures of Iran's government and military command were believed to be meeting, unaware that their world was about to change forever. As the jets closed in, the world was about to hold its breath. In newsrooms, from Washington to Moscow, analysts watched radar screens and waited for the first sign that history was about to pivot. In those cockpits, pilots carried not just missiles, but the weight of decades of animosity, failed diplomacy, and the hopes and fears of their nation. Each pilot knew that what they were about to do would echo far beyond the desert below. As they neared their target, weapon systems locked on, and the final commands were given. Fingers hovered over launch buttons, hearts pounded in anticipation, and the world seemed to pause, suspended in a moment of unbearable tension. Then, with a flurry of movement, missiles launched, slicing through the night. Guided by satellites, programmed with coordinates, destined for a single compound. The silence of the night was shattered by the roar of engines and the streak of fire across the sky. In those seconds, the fuse, on the Middle East powder keg, was lit. The explosion illuminated the night, a blinding flash that signaled the end of one era and the violent birth of another. The quiet of Tehran was about to be shattered forever. Windows rattled, alarms blared, and residents awoke in terror, their lives changed in an instant by forces far beyond their control. This was the moment that would be debated and mourned for generations. In living rooms and palaces, in mosques and parliaments, the world would struggle to comprehend the consequences of what had just begun. The world would never be the same. The opening salvo had been fired, and the reverberations would be felt in every corner of the globe. The target was more than a building. It was the sanctum of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, a place shrouded in secrecy and protected by the most formidable security apparatus in the country. For decades, this compound had stood as the nerve center of Iran's theocratic regime, a symbol of unyielding authority and the epicenter of decision-making that shaped the fate of millions. The heart of Iran's power pulsed here, behind layers of concrete, steel, and loyal guards. Every corridor echoed with the footsteps of those who wielded influence over the nation's destiny. The compound was not just a residence, it was a fortress, a command post, and a symbol of the regime's enduring grip. Inside, Iran's top leaders gathered for a crisis meeting, surrounded by layers of security and anti-aircraft defenses. The air was thick with tension as generals, advisors, and family members assembled, believing themselves untouchable within these fortified walls. The compound, thought impenetrable, was about to face the unthinkable. Its defenses, meticulously planned and rigorously maintained, had never been breached. Yet, on this night, the unimaginable was set in motion. Without warning, precision missiles struck. The attack was swift, calculated, and devastating, catching everyone inside completely off guard. The central building erupted in fire and debris, obliterating the regime's core in seconds. Flames consumed the chambers where the nation's most powerful had just convened, leaving nothing but chaos and destruction in their wake. No one inside survived. Not Khamenei, not his inner circle, not his family. The decapitation was total. In a single shattering moment, the leadership that had ruled with iron resolve was erased, leaving a void at the very top of Iran's hierarchy. Israel had wiped out the senior command of its greatest adversary in a single, audacious move. The operation was a display of intelligence, precision, and boldness that stunned the world and sent a clear message to friend and foe alike. The shockwaves would ripple far beyond Iran's borders. Governments scrambled to assess the fallout while global markets trembled and ordinary people everywhere wondered what would come next. The world would awaken to a new, uncertain era. The fortress had fallen, and with it the certainty that had defined the region for decades was gone. The balance of power had shifted overnight. The heart of the regime was gone, leaving a nation and a world on the brink of an unpredictable future. To understand this strike, rewind to 1979. The Islamic Revolution transformed Iran into a theocracy, fiercely opposed to the West and Israel. Ayatollah Khamenei's regime exported its ideology, arming proxies like Hezbollah to wage war against Israel. Decades of proxy wars, assassinations and sabotage followed, deepening the enmity. Khamenei's successor, doubled down, empowering the IRGC and fueling regional conflict. The night of the attack was the climax of 47 years of shadow war. The powder keg, primed by history, finally exploded. At the heart of the crisis was Iran's nuclear ambition. The 2015 nuclear deal offered hope, but its collapse in 2018 reignited fears of a nuclear-armed Iran. Sanctions returned, Iran ramped up enrichment, and diplomacy failed. Israel's red line was crossed as Iran neared bomb capability. The logic of preemption took hold. Strike before being struck. The failed promise of diplomacy gave way to grim reality. The region edged closer to war. The final act was set in motion. In 2025, the conflict erupted. U.S. and Israeli strikes targeted Iran's nuclear sites, crippling its program but igniting fury. Iran's economy, already battered, teetered on collapse. Protests exploded into a revolutionary movement, demanding an end to the regime. The government responded with brutal force. Thousands killed, tens of thousands imprisoned. The world watched in horror as Iran descended into chaos. By early 2026, diplomacy was dead. The regime, besieged and paranoid, refused to yield. For U.S. President Trump and Israel, the threat was intolerable. The decision, a joint operation to eliminate Iran's leadership. The stage was set for the Tehran strike. In the early hours of March 1, 2026, the world was jolted awake by a series of missile strikes that would change the course of history. The missiles, launched with chilling precision, streaked across the sky before slamming into their targets in the heart of Tehran. The city, usually bustling even at night, was suddenly illuminated by fireballs and the thunder of explosions. Within moments, chaos erupted as emergency sirens wailed and residents scrambled for safety, unsure of what was unfolding above them. At the epicenter of the attack, Ayatollah Khamenei and his top commanders were killed instantly, their secure compound offering no protection against the onslaught. The nation's most powerful figures were wiped out in a matter of seconds, leaving a gaping void at the top of Iran's leadership. The regime's leadership was decimated in seconds. The once imposing government buildings now stood in ruins, their walls blackened and windows shattered. The conference rooms where critical decisions were made now sat eerily empty, echoing with the silence of sudden loss. News of the strike spread like wildfire. Across Iran, people gathered in the streets, glued to television screens and mobile phones. Shock, fear, disbelief, and even celebration erupted in equal measure. Some wept openly, mourning the loss of their leaders, while others dared to hope for a new beginning. Videos quickly surfaced online, showing monuments toppled and crowds cheering the end of an era. In some neighborhoods, people danced in the streets, while in others, the mood was tense and uncertain, as if the nation was holding its breath. The regime's aura of invincibility was shattered in an instant. Symbols of power, banners, statues, and military insignia lay in ruins, stripped of their former meaning. For many, it was the first time they had seen the regime so vulnerable. Globally, the assassination sent shockwaves through capitals and newsrooms. It was a geopolitical earthquake, the likes of which had not been seen in decades. Governments scrambled to assess the fallout, and world leaders convened emergency meetings to discuss the rapidly evolving crisis. The targeted killing of a head of state broke international norms, raising urgent legal and ethical questions. Debates erupted at the United Nations and among legal scholars worldwide, as the world grappled with the implications of this unprecedented act. Russia swiftly condemned the attack, warning of dire consequences, while NATO braced for the unpredictable fallout. The balance of power in the region, and perhaps the world, was suddenly in flux. Around the globe, people watched live news coverage, their faces tense with anxiety. News anchors struggled to keep up with the torrent of updates, as uncertainty gripped audiences from Washington to Beijing. Inside Iran, the mood was volatile. The country was suddenly leaderless, enraged, and teetering on the brink of chaos. Protests erupted, government offices stood deserted, and flags flew at half-mast as the nation mourned and raged in equal measure. The Middle East had crossed a line. Tensions soared across borders, with neighboring countries on high alert, and military forces mobilizing in anticipation of what might come next. The consequences would be swift, unpredictable, and far-reaching, setting the stage for a new and uncertain chapter in world history. Chaos engulfed Iran, its leadership gone, a power vacuum yawned. President Pezeshkian, spared by fate, vowed revenge on live TV, but panic was palpable. A provisional council scrambled to hold the state together. Behind closed doors, a desperate power struggle erupted. The U.S. and Israel launched a second wave, striking air defenses, missile sites, and command centers. Cyber attacks urged Iranians to rise up. The regime's military and communications were crippled. Celebrations mixed with dread. Would civil war or foreign invasion follow? President Trump called on Iranians to seize the moment. The nation's fate hung in the balance. Iran stood at the edge of the unknown. Iran struck back, missiles and drones unleashed on Israel-U.S. bases and Gulf allies. Civilian and military targets alike were hit. Terror and chaos spread. Dubai's skyline was scarred, airports closed, oil tankers burned. The Strait of Hormuz, vital to global oil, was threatened. The Middle East became a war zone overnight. Oil prices soared, markets tumbled, and global trade faltered. Iran's retaliation, though not decisive, proved its capacity for disruption. The world paid the price for the Tehran strike. The region was engulfed in flames. No one was untouched by the fallout. The conflict had gone global. The Middle East now teeters on the edge. Violence, power vacuums, and the threat of wider war loom. The U.S. considers ground troops, haunted by past interventions. The legality and wisdom of preemptive war are fiercely debated worldwide. Americans are divided. Most disapprove of the strike. Inside Iran, the regime's grip is shattered but not broken. Factions vie for power. The people demand change. The future is uncertain. Uprising, civil war, or a new strongman. The old order is gone, replaced by chaos. The world watches, anxious and wary. The Tehran strike was not the end, but the violent beginning of a new chapter. Its consequences will echo for years, written in blood and fire.